Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. I'm very happy today to be bringing you a webinar with Graeser, founder of KISSPatent, on the very interesting subject of patentability, and more importantly, exactly how you can leverage all the data and all the patent data that's out there to be able to make you innovate faster, be more efficient, and not get bogged down in that horrible space where you've come up with a brilliant idea but you can't go forward with it because it's not patentable. Just a couple of things before we jump straight into the presentation with Dwora. So this webinar will be around 60 minutes. About 45 of that will be the presentation, and then we're really happy to do a Q&A at the end of that. So if any questions pop up whilst Dwora is speaking, please submit them in the questions box, and we will go through all of that at the end of the presentation. So you'll have a chance to ask an expert with over 21 years of experience about your questions when it comes to search and patentability. But I'm not going to drown on any longer. Without further ado, Dwora, please take it away.
Thanks so much for the awesome introduction, and also thanks to PatSnap for having me. So, this is me. I'm Dwora Graeser. I have over 20 years of patent experience, and I am both a programmer and I'm also in life science. So I spent 4 years programming with the Human Genome Project. But for you, I think a particularly important point is that I was also in-house for a while. I was vice president of intellectual property at a company called Compugem. So I really thought it was like to be on both sides of the table, looking at issues of budget and time. How can we maximize our resources to be able to protect our ideas with patents so we can turn them into valuable assets? So here's again a thank you to PatSnap, our host, a little plug for PatSnap. I actually use PatSnap myself for searches that I perform for my clients. I've always been very happy with their software, so I really urge everyone looking into getting a license because I find it really useful. And we'll actually take a couple of examples today of searches with PatSnap. All right, this is what happens when you spend too much time with lawyers. Nothing in this presentation or in any material provided, whether verbally or in writing, constitutes legal or patent advice. So why do a search? You have a great idea. You know you want to file for a patent, protect it. Why would you want to do a search? Well, you want to do a search to understand more about how and why your idea is patentable. So what is patentable? Patentable ideas have 3 characteristics, and they must fulfill all of them in order for you to be able to get a patent. First of all, your idea must be a technology that falls into a patentable category. Second of all, it must be novel or new. And third of all, it must be non-obvious or inventive. It's important to understand these characteristics briefly before we go into search, because the why of patentability is also the why of your patentability search. So patentable categories, these are categories of technology under which you can potentially get a patent, include software, hardware, and high tech, also mechanical devices, chemicals, drugs, etc. That quote, anything under the sun made by the hand of man or woman, is actually a quote from a U.S. Supreme Court case determining that genetically modified bacteria could in fact be patented. So what is novel? Novel means that your idea was not known to the public before the earliest priority date. It is determined in comparison to the prior art, that is everything that was published anywhere in the world, any language, before the earliest priority date of patent. And for novelty, it has to be a one-on-one match. As a quick note, earliest priority date, what I mean by that is when you file for a patent, you can multi-step process. For example, US, you can file first for a provisional, and then within 1 year, you can file a PCT or a US full or utility application, you can file in Europe, etc. Basically, in all countries which belong to the Paris Convention, you can file first in that country, and then you can file internationally within a year. So that first filing date is known as your priority date. The judgment made as to whether or not you deserve a patent for your idea is the earliest priority date for your idea. So in this case, the comparison then is to prior art, anything published anywhere in the world before your application was filed, or on a country-by-country basis for patent applications that were filed before yours but was published after. That's a bit tricky. In general, it has to do with our publication. And we're talking about searching. That is one of the things we'll focus on. As I said before, novelty has to be a one-on-one match. So you're going to look for everything that's published anywhere in the world before your earliest filing date, your priority date, and you're going to see if there's anything that's a one-to-one match. In that case, your idea is not novel, and therefore it's not patentable. So what is inventiveness? This is a really important point for your idea to see whether or not it's patentable. Your idea is less likely, in my experience, to not be novel or new. And the reason why is that you will, of course, added your own thoughts. It is unlikely, or less likely, I don't say unlikely, it is less likely that you have a direct one-on-one version of what other people are doing. So for that reason, inventiveness is typically what will end up being the problem for you when you are in front of the examiner. So this gets into another reason why we're going to do the search. You're doing a search because you don't want to be surprised when you file your patent with the examiner. You don't want to spend a lot of money preparing and filing your patent, only to find out that it's not patentable because of someone else's prior art. Now, inventiveness is highly subjective, but what it means is that if either your idea is kind of similar to something in the prior art with not significant changes, that might not be considered to be inventive. But in particular, what to watch out for is if the examiner can take some features from patent A and some features from patent B and put them together to get your idea. This, for me, in my experience, is the most likely form of rejection from the examiner. And when you're doing a search, you need to keep this in mind. You need to think, wait a minute, I may not have found all of my features of my idea in one patent, but could I combine two or more patents or patent applications or other publications, TED Talks, magazine articles, scientific articles? Could I combine two or more of those and end up building my idea? So this is a really super important point to think about. Do not think only about one piece of prior art, think about combinations. Okay, so what's the underlying common factor to all those things that I brought up? The comparison to the prior art. As I mentioned before, the examiner considers all prior art published before the priority date. You may not have heard this, so the priority date is the earliest filing date for your patent application. In all countries belonging to the Paris Convention, you can file first in that country, and then within 1 year, file all over the world, in Europe, in the US, in China, wherever you want. So your priority date is the first filing date where you describe your idea. And the examiner will consider all prior art published before that date. Also, they'll consider certain patents and applications filed before that date, but I'm not going to get into that because it's a bit trickier. The comparison in the US is to a faucita, a person that does not exist, a person having ordinary skill in the art who hypothetically knows all prior art in any language, anywhere in the world, published at any time. And as I mentioned before, the examiner can combine references for inventiveness within reason. What is reasonable depends on the examiner. That's, again, also very, very subjective. So it's a super tough thing to know in advance. But in general, if two or more references are in the same or similar technical field, they can be combined. So now we're going to talk about the mechanics of how to search. But it's really important to keep those other factors in mind when doing the search. So categories of prior art. Prior art, as I said before, I'm now specifically focusing on things that were published before your earliest filing date, your priority date. They include patents and patent applications. Non-patent literature, this is stuff like scientific articles, magazines, websites. Also, released products, TED Talks, etc., are considered to be prior art. Technically, they would also be non-patent literature, but I'm distinguishing them because, for example, if a product is released that functionally has part of your or all of your idea included within it before you file, so now this is a bar to you filing, at least for those aspects in the product, it would be an issue of documentation. For example, the examiner could look at websites associated with the product or product manuals, but the product itself would also be considered to be prior art. When you're searching for patents and applications, and I'm going to talk about that today, if there are a lot of people who are interested in searches for non-patent literature, I do have some slides way at the end. They're not part of the presentation I plan to give, but I would be happy to go over those slides if there's a big interest. But right now I'm going to talk about searching for patents and published patent applications. 4 kinds of search. You can do a keyword search, so words like computer, software, etc. You can search by the owner, Apple, like Apple Computer. That Apple is the owner of certain patents and applications. You can do a semantic search, and here we're going to use PatSnap as the example because they have a really great semantic search. A semantic search basically uses natural language processing, or NLP, to understand something that you write like a human, not like a bunch of keywords all put together, but like the way a human would actually talk, and then tries to find prior art that's similar. And it's a really powerful tool. The final aspect is searching by classes, which, as I'll discuss, I prefer to add to each of these other types of searches. I find starting your search to search by class to be less useful. We can get into that why a little farther on. All right, we're going to start with a free patent search tool provided by Google. It's really easy to use, it's very intuitive, and even if you don't have a PatSnap license, you can use this tool. So here's an example. You have this really great idea for a mobile communication device. On this device, you can make phone calls. You don't need a landline connection. You can play music. You can send and receive emails. You can surf the web, and it fits in your pocket. So this sounds like a really, really great idea. And you want to do a patentability search for it with this description. So what are you going to do? By the way, yes, I am talking about a cell phone, but I just thought it would be an easy example for all of us to look at together. Well, I recommend starting off with a keyword search with Google Patent. Of course, if you have a tool like PatSnap, you can go right to that. But for people who don't, or if you just want to do like something quick, Google Patent has a very quick and easy interface. This is the link to it. By the way, I did put my email address in. I think if you email me, I can send you the presentation, and we can also have a talk after privately if you want to ask questions that are kind of private or secret about your own idea. So just to mention that in case it got lost in the noise before. Anyway, click on this link. I would recommend, in this case, for this whole idea here, for your mobile communication device, I would start with these keywords. But what about cellular? I mean, it does talk on cellular networks. And you also want to make certain that you don't end up with walkie-talkies or two-way radios. Walkie-talkies are kind of a very short-range two-way radio, and of course, two-way radio is two-way radio. So we're specifically excluding that. We're really talking about a cell phone. So these are already questions to think. When you're setting up a keyword search, I always start with an initial set of keywords, but I also think about other keywords I can either add or swap into or out of this list, depending on the results I get. Because this is really, it's an art. I recommend doing several different kinds of searches. I end up doing it often a few different ways if I'm doing a keyword search to see how this varies with the results. Different keywords can be used to describe the same concepts, and sometimes, unfortunately, also vice versa. The same keywords can actually be used to describe different concepts. So you have to play around with it a bit. So we're going to go to Google Patents. And I hope everyone can see this okay, the slide. But basically, at the top here, this is the link. So what I did is I went to Google Patents, and I put in these words, and this is the actual screenshot I got. I hope you can see it up there at the top. But what Google does, and this is really nice, they make a direct URL which adds in your keywords. So if you do a keyword search and you want to send the search to someone else, you don't just have to tell them, the keywords you used. Of course, you could do that and they could replicate it. But you can also simply send them this link, and this is really convenient. So at any rate, we have different results. We have a wireless mobile communication device with different processors and transceivers. I would recommend clicking on some of these results and checking them and seeing if this is really what you want, because if it's not, then you would need to change the keywords. So here you may notice I did not include cellular. I only had mobile communication device that's wireless. So when I include cellular, again, I hope this is visible, but up here, when I include cellular, you can see I end up with different results. So these are not the same results that I had before. And this is actually quite typical. Google is going to try to guess as to which references, which patents you find most relevant. It's just like a regular Google search in that respect. They're going to take the words, and just like for a regular Google search, they're going to find what they think you want. But it's what they think you want. Now, it's true. It's based on their great search algorithms, and they have a lot of experience, and they have a lot of data, but you might still not get the results you want. On the other hand, it's very easy to do, and you can quickly see if you're ending up with reasonable results or not. So this is the Google keyword search. Just up here under the settings, you can limit it by patent office if you want to look at U.S. patents. You can separate patents from published patent applications. You can limit your search by date. So let's say you filed your first patent application. You have that earliest priority date. You want to look at everything that was filed before your priority date. You can do that here up under settings. So that's really nice and easy to do. But the main aspect with keyword search is even making a one-word change in a keyword search can give you radically different results. So that's why it's important to try to do several rounds of the search. Okay, let's go on to the next one. There we go. So this is actually regular Google. Now, just to distinguish, here we're in Google Patents. We're only getting patent results. I can also do the same search in regular Google, and I'll end up with these results, which are very generic. So these aren't specifically related to patents, but a regular Google search is also not a bad idea to do as well, because then you can get some examples of non-patent literature like websites, etc. Okay, Google has another nice feature, which you can also, by the way, do in PatSnap. All of these things I'm telling you about right now, you can also do in PatSnap. And I will have a PatSnap example. But for now, we're going to search by owner. Go to this link. It's the advanced patent search. We're going to look for a competitor. Let's suppose now that you know that Apple is a competitor. In fact, they're your biggest competitor. You want to see what patents they have in this area. But you know that Apple also makes a lot of other stuff. They make computers. They make iPads. They make iPods. They make everything. So you want to be certain that you're going to only get search results related to those specific Apple patents and applications that you're interested in. So you can also add keywords to this search. So continuing right along, we're going to do search by owner using the Google Patent Search. So we clicked on that link for the advanced patent search. I showed that in the previous slide. And you can put keywords at the top. So you see there's a circle for smartphone, and there's an arrow, and it says keywords go here. And then I put another arrow under original assignee. Original assignee is patent speak for the original patent owner. The Google Patent Search does not allow you to find the patent if, say, Google bought it or if Apple bought it, right? So we're searching for Apple. If Apple bought a patent, you won't see it on the Google Patent Search. But you will see it, though, on the PatSnap patent search. So if you do a search by owner in PatSnap, you can see the original owner, the original assignee, or the current owner, the current assignee. For the search for patents owned by a very big company like Apple, I do very much recommend putting in some keywords. Otherwise, you're going to put every single patent that they've ever come up with and published. Okay, moving on to the next slide, which for me is slide 23.
Yes,
search by owner of Google. At the top, you can see what was searched. So on the left-hand side, that's the keyword, smartphone. Then the word in assignee, that means we're only looking for patents and patent applications related to smartphones that are owned, the original owner is Apple. And here's some search results. Now you can see this gave really different search results than our earliest one. And that's because we did, of course, change the keyword, but we also restricted it to patents by Apple. Okay, now we're going to talk in the next slide about search with PatSnap. So search with PatSnap, it's an excellent tool. Everything I showed you before in Google Patents, you can actually do with PatSnap, but even better. So here's our previous example, the mobile communication device. I'm not going to read it out again, but you remember that's what we were looking at before with Google Patent Search. Now we're going to do a semantic search in PatSnap. Basically, if you click on this link, you go to analytics.patsnap.com/patent/semantic. You can also access it through the regular PatSnap search screen. So you go to PatSnap Patent Search and you can select semantic search. It's one of the options. What is important about a semantic search is in order for it to work well, it has to be in narrative form. The computer is expecting something like human language. The computer is not expecting a pile of keywords. So if you have a pile of keywords, you will not get a really good result out of the semantic search. And in fact, writing the most human way forward is actually definitely the best way to go forward and to do it. Now, I wrote up here then a short little description, and it says a mobile communication device that is wireless, blah, blah, blah. All right, so this is a narrative form. It's not just a bunch of keywords. And I put that in. Here's the little box. You can see I'm in the semantic search, so that's lit up in green. I've selected all the different patent offices, patents applications, the whole 9 yards. I want to see everything. And then I'm going to click on that green button at the bottom for direct search. Now, one thing to note, you notice how these few sentences here, they look kind of lonely, don't they? There aren't that many of them, and that's because PatSnap has an awesome 3,000 character capacity for doing a semantic search. So I really recommend trying to fill as much as possible in the semantic search. So like I said before, this search looks a little bit lonely because it only has a few words. More words are definitely better for semantic search. Filling up the semantic search to the capacity or close to the capacity of PatSnap will give you better results because I've played with this before. All right, so we hit search, and then we get a whole bunch of results. You can see on the left-hand side are assignees. Those are patent owners. In the middle, we have numbers on the left, and we have the inventor names in the middle, and on the right, we have the application date. So we're like, is this really what we want or not? Well, if you hover or mouse over the results, for each number that you mouse over, what will happen is this paragraph will pop up. So right now, what you should be seeing is semantic search, that's PatSnap, and what looks like kind of the partial PatSnap screen blocked by a box that has text, and it has also a little diagram. So this is what you get for the mouse over. This way you can quickly check the results to see if they're realistic or not. Now this is kind of not what I had in mind. I mean, yeah, it's related to telecommunications. Not too happy with these results. This is not exactly what I thought. And in this kind of a case, especially where I have not really put in a full description, I haven't filled up that semantic search capability, probably the problem is I haven't put in enough words into my semantic search. So now what you need to remember if you run into problems is you should have an extensive story in the narrative form. So those few lonely sentences, they aren't going to cut it. You should increase the length of the description in case of problems. Now, this is not the only thing you can do, of course. We'll go into another tool you can do without changing the description later on. Increasing the length, though, is the first step that I would try to fix the problem. Another thing that you can do is maybe to focus a lot on keywords you think are particularly important, but in this case, clearly it's the length of the description which is causing us a problem. So now I've increased the length of my description, and I have gotten some new search results, and I've done a mouse over to mouse over one of the numbers of the results. I don't have to even click on it, so there's no clicking. I'm still in this results screen. I do the mouse over, and I get the results. And in this case, it's talking about predictive keyboard inputting. Well, this is definitely much better. It's clearly talking about cellular telephones. It's talking about predictive keyboard inputting. What did I do in this case? I actually took the description of the iPhone, and I simply removed the description, I removed the words iPhone and Apple from it, so we wouldn't accidentally end up with results, that were talking about iPhones. We want ones that talked about cell phones. So I did that, and I made it much longer, and as you can see, we now have much better results. So definitely length is key and critical for semantic searches. But let's suppose you made it longer and you're getting some relevant results, but gee, some of the results seem really relevant and some of them don't. You can add a classification to your search. Now, just as like a quick note, what a classification is. Patents are classified according to the class into which the invention falls. And it's decided which class that the invention falls into according to the claims. So remember, the claims are the business end of the patent. The claims are the part of the patent that give you your rights, right? So if you go to court, it's the claims they'll be compared to. So you file for your patent, you have claims. The examiner will use those claims to figure out which class you fall into. And these classifications were designed in the 19th century, at the start of the industrial age. And so they are really focused on industrial age inventions. So what it means is that things like software, computers, mobile phones, apps don't comfortably fit within this classification. So I'm going to show you an example of some classes that you might check. And if it seems a little bit weird, remember they're trying to kind of shoehorn these 21st or 20th and 21st century ideas into a 19th century industrial age system. And by the way, some types of inventions are not split up into multiple classes. So for example, there are multiple classes for things like gears and fasteners, and there's only one class for antibodies. So if you want to know what classes to add, there's a couple different ways you can do it. One way is you can click on this link. It shows different classifications, and it describes each one. You can run a search, so if you didn't know what apps fell into or what smartphones, what classes those fell into, you can run a search. And you can use that to kind of help limit your search. And this is particularly helpful if some results seem relevant and some don't, or if you just have too many results, you don't know what the heck is going on. Classifications are a great way to help limit. But I really only recommend them as an adjunct. I really don't recommend starting with a classification search. There are some experts that do this, but I have not found this to be particularly helpful for me. Okay, so here you see, again, the PatSnap screen. So this is the same search as that we had just done before with the semantic search with the longer narrative. And on the left-hand side, I've moved the little bar up and down, and you can see now I can look for classifications. IPC are international patent classifications. I recommend using the IPC, the International Patent Classification, because those are used all over the world. They're standard, and you can also talk to other people about your results in terms of the classifications and everyone understand what you meant. Just to quickly reiterate, this link here will bring you to the IPC, to the International Patent Classification. Okay, so we have a few of them here. I'm like, gee, I don't know, which one should we use? HO4M1725, there seem to be a bunch of HO4M1s, but there's also an HO4B1 and an HO4Q7. That's kind of confusing. Which one should we use? Well, go to the classification. Click on that link and look at what the different classes and subclasses are related to. So here, for example, I clicked on that link, and I am now looking at HO4B. This is transmission, details of transmission systems, radio transmission. You can see where this is going. It's like basically ways to transmit information. And you might be like, well, I'm not so sure that this is really what I want. So I'm going to look at another one. So within that same system, through that same link, you can also look at HO4M. Telephonic communication. My idea is a smartphone. Telephonic communication looks right. And it looks like something I want to search much more than just transmission. So in that case, you decide anything involving HO4M, you're going to take a look at first. Remember, these are classes, so you're going to limit your results that you found with the semantic search to patents and patent applications that fall within this particular class or the classes that you select. Now, I have done that. Actually, I don't have a screen showing them with the little boxes nicely checked. But what I did was I checked all of the boxes on the left-hand side in that earlier screen, which had HO4M in them, because I decided anything HO4M, telephonic communications, that's what I wanted. What I've circled up here at the left, it shows all of the boxes that I selected. So these are all of the specific subclasses, HO4M being a class, all the specific subclasses I selected. Now, where did those subclasses come from? PatSnap is really, really nice as a tool for many reasons, but one of which is it will bring to you the subclasses in the results, and the classes and subclasses, and it'll list them for you. So all you have to do, you don't have to guess which class or subclass you want to look at. You already see in that previous screen I showed you. Let me just quickly go back. Sorry. Now that it seems to be working, I want to take advantage. All right. Here, they're listing things you can select from. And there's like a whole bunch of things you can select from here. You don't have to guess what you can select from. All of these things are available to you. And then once you've selected, of course, by looking at these other resources, you can then come here and you can take a look. Now, there's also help for the classifications in PatSnap itself. I personally like going externally to the whiteboard resource so I can see everything out in front of PatSnap just to make it easier to go back and forth. That's my preference, but you don't have to do that. And now, of course, that I've made this selection, when I mouse over the results, mouse over results again, now I'm getting a for displaying information on a display of a cell phone. In other words, this it basically relates to a particular type of app. So now this is much closer. This is really what I want. Thinking, wow, yeah, smartphones seems to be known, but applications, that's really interesting. That's what I want to look at. By limiting myself to those subclasses, now I'm getting much closer to the direction I want to go in, if I decided that's where I want to go. Now, if this doesn't work, you can try different subclasses. You can switch to a keyword search. You can change your narrative description. You can limit yourself further with keywords. There's lots of different things you can do with PatSnap, and I'm not going to go through all of them now. So this is the results for semantic search. You see we have new results because we limit ourselves to classes. Again, I only recommend adding classes to a search you've already set up in either keywords or semantic search. I don't recommend starting off the classification search. So what does it all mean? We've done this search. We've gotten these results. What does it mean? Think like an examiner. Remember, you're doing the search because you want your patent to be accepted by the examiner. So when you're looking at the search results, you need to think like an examiner. The first question is, can you find each part of your idea in a patent or MPL? Now, it doesn't have to be the same reference. It doesn't have to be the same patent or the same non-patent literature, like the same magazine article. And you can combine patents and non-patent literature, so you can combine things any way possible. Can you find each part of your idea in different references? If so, can you easily combine these parts to construct your idea? Now, one way to say that it's not easy to do is if you take what's described in each of these references, a patent, a magazine article, and when you combine them, they don't work. Remember, the examiner is not allowed to be an inventor. The examiner is not allowed to say, with the benefit of hindsight, I can see how I might adjust this part from this patent or adjust that part from that magazine article. No, no. Has to be a straightforward combination, no adjustment, no inventiveness, no real thought allowed. So combinations of ideas are only permitted if you can do so easily without having to add any inventiveness. Finally, what's your wow factor? In some countries, such as Europe, yes, I know Europe is not a country, but the European Patent Office, for the purpose of examination, is a single country. In Europe, the standard for patentability is determined according to the problem-solution approach. So in that case, you define the problem that you're going to solve, and then you describe how your solution solves that problem with the wow factor. In the US, what you're saying is that your idea is non-obvious because of the wow factor, because it is not something that one of ordinary skill in the art could get merely by combining known references. Now remember, someone of ordinary skill in the art cannot be a genius, and they're certainly not going to be you. They're going to be an ordinary person or an ordinary team of people working on your idea, and they're assumed not to be inventive. That's just the legal assumption. So think about that when you're looking at your search results. Of course, as a first pass, you just want to see generally what's out there. I recommend that. Look to see what your competitors are doing. Look to see what's generally in the field. But when you're really getting down to brass tacks and you're trying to decide if you want to file for that patent, then you need to go through these steps with the search results to see if you have a truly patentable idea. Shortcuts. Keyword searches alone can be misleading. PatSnap has a great keyword search. Of course, I mentioned the Google keyword search. They can be misleading because the computer has to try to understand what you mean by those keywords. Sometimes different keywords can be used to describe the same concept, and even worse, sometimes the same keywords are used to describe different concepts. So keyword search alone, a little bit dangerous. It can be misleading. Definitely search competitors. Find out what's going on in your field. Find out what direction your competitors are going in. This is super useful information. You can also see the level of detail that your competitors have used when describing their own inventions and patents. That'll give you some idea of what to aim for. Semantic search, it really depends on your description. If it doesn't work, first of all, make certain you've filled up all of that space available to you. For example, from PatSnap, lots of room to put in lots of words, so make certain that you fill that up. If you have filled it up, try using different words. And of course, you can also search by classes, although again, this is really best as an add-on. I don't recommend this as the way to start. Okay, let's see here. Warning. Yes, play around with the results. It's an art. It's not a science. And different people doing the same search can actually come up with radically different results. And that's just because of the way the searches work. No matter what searching tool you do, they are limited. There is an awful lot of stuff out there. You may be making some assumptions that you may not realize. So again, play around with the results and see what you get. Don't limit yourself to patents and published patent applications. Non-patent literature is very important in many fields, of course in the life sciences, like medical device and pharmaceuticals, but also for computer software and hardware and electronics. Universities all over the world publish tons and tons of white papers as scientific articles. So that is also really important to look at. Now, if you can't find it, it doesn't mean that it isn't out there. I know it's frustrating, but it's really hard to prove a negative. So keep on searching, search multiple times, ask other people for help or for feedback or for guidance. Maybe get different people to do the same search, and you're more likely to find all of the interesting and relevant results. So thank you so much. Whew, we got through that. Let's see.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of you that have stuck around to the end and have made it. We've got just a couple of questions and just a couple of minutes, so it should work out just okay. So the first one I'm going to go through is back when you were searching and showing through Google, and somebody asked, what about the thought that Google keeps track of your searches and may be part of discovery? And also off the back of that, obviously people are worried about triple damages. How do you deal with that?
Well, I would say that Google keeping track of your searches, that is a general concern. I don't want to make light of that concern. Using a tool like PatSnap obviously obviates that problem because You have a specific license agreement with PatSnap, which of course you should speak to the PatSnap folks about, but it's really specific, and what it means is that your stuff is basically your stuff, and you don't have to worry about people tracking you. Now, I use PatSnap. I'm very happy to use it. I recommend it to my clients. I have great confidence in them. And private search tools in general, yes, you're going to have far greater confidence that someone is not basically tracking your stuff. The other point, though, about discovery, it's possible, but I think that's a little bit less of an issue because Google has like a fire hose of data. I'd be more worried that they would see this combination of keywords, and who knows where the heck that would go. That would be my main concern. Private tools like PatSnap are the way to go in that case. But if you don't have access to that, then Google Patent Search, it's out there. Okay, next question.
Perfect. So this was about the semantic search in PatSnap. So do you recommend it to be a starting point? Because what the person is worried about is missing potential hits because of missed keywords, synonyms, etc.
In PatSnap, I actually really do like starting with a semantic search. I take a description of the invention. I try to make it as complete as possible for that reason that I showed you. That's a super important point. And then based on that, I look at the results. I can then refine them further with classes, by changing the description, by adding restrictive keywords, etc. A keyword search isn't a bad thing if you don't have a full description yet, or let's say you want to find all smartphone patents ever produced by Apple. And there's a lot, by the way. I've actually done a search like that. There's a ton of stuff. But in that case, a keyword search is quite good. But for me personally, I do tend to start with a semantic search first for the reasons you've given, also just because it is so very good and you can see a whole corpus of results which are likely to be relevant to what you want.
Perfect. Well, that looks like it's all the questions. Thank you so much, guys.
Wait, sorry. I did see a couple more quick things just flashed up here.
Oh, no worries.
Electronics and circuit boards, these do fall into a category of patentable inventions, like software, like hardware, like technology, generally speaking. And you can also search them using the tips and techniques that I've described. And finally, can we get the extra slides with notes? I just put in my email address. You want to talk to me, want to get the slides, email me. I'm always happy to talk to you and to email you stuff.
Thank you so much, Dora. That was actually a brilliant presentation. And thank you guys for taking your time out and watching this. And look out in your email inboxes for that follow-up. Thank you so much, and see you soon, everyone.